All right. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Glad to have you aboard. This week, we're going to talk about a few things. I had a couple of requests over the last week for some topics, so we're going to cover those. I also want to mention a project that one of our high school seniors did as their senior project, which I think is pretty cool. And then we'll end with updates on kind of what we're going to be planning on for next week. Over vacation, we will not be running, obviously. Some of the vacations in the past we did, but we're not going to next week. But the following week, we're going to start having more student-driven shows, so I'm excited about that. So we're going to start with a screen share. So we had last night, for those of you that saw this or got to do this with Painting with Mandy. So if you don't know this, Amanda King, who is a senior, her senior project this year was to do a fundraiser. Mandy King's painting tutorial, the style of Bob Ross. And so she did this live, but we also, of course, recorded it, and here it is on the page. The link, I'll put it in the chat, but we'll also have it right on this page. So if you do wanted to follow these tutorial, maybe later on your own pace, or rewatch it, or share with some students or some kids, and have them do the steps that Mandy did to create this beautiful painting here. Here's the final rendition without the text, of course. This is a fundraiser she did for the Pine Tree Camp. So if you go scroll down here on this page, that link, bit.ly/paintwithmandy, will bring you to this page. It will also give you a materials list right here. It's actually an Amazon list. I'm not signed in right now, but it'll bring you right to Amazon. And you don't have to buy from Amazon, but it'll tell you exactly everything that you need. It's also listed. There they are, two versions of the same thing. Right here, each piece that you would need. And then there's the final result, what she's painted, which is absolutely beautiful. She did a really nice job. But this video right here will take you through step by step. I thought that was a fun, cool way. We had a couple cameras going. We, projected on the broadcast channel. So just kind of a fun fundraiser for Mandy. So if you haven't checked that out, please do. All right, so we were going to talk about photos this week because I had a couple things coming up, but I did get a request, and so I want to push that back, and we're going to do this first. Miss Barlett from the high school math teacher asked about doing mail merges. How would you create a mail merge? And so if you had students or yourself or parents or whatever, you wanted to collect information, maybe an email address, maybe a form letter, that type of thing, you wanted to have it automatically email out results, we're going to go through the process of how you would do that. So step number one, I'm going to be here. Yes, thank you, Nate. Yes, you did a great job. So here's the good news, Nate. If you missed it, it's recorded, right? So you'll be able to get to it later on and do it at your own leisure. All right, so we're going to go through the process of creating a mail merge. So step one is I just open up a Google spreadsheet. And you could, if you wanted to, go through and actually, like if you already had the information, let's say you already had, a list of your parents' information or your students, and you wanted to automatically email them or whatever, you can also connect it to a Google form. And so that's what we're going to do, just to show you how that will work. So I just open up a new blank Google spreadsheet. I'm going to go up to Tools, create a form right here. And the reason why I did this first, you could go the opposite way. You can create a Google form first and create a spreadsheet from that. They both are basically two sides of the same coin. A form, people will fill information in and it will fill into a spreadsheet. Or you can have them separate. I like doing it this way. So if I go to my spreadsheet first and create tools, create a form, you'll notice here down at the bottom now, I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, there's a new tab called Form Responses 1. So that's automatically built once you create that form. So this is going to be my mail merge example.
A quick announcement. Anybody interested?
All right. So our mail merge example, we can get really complicated with forms, or we can get really simple. I'm just going to do a couple questions here. I'm going to say, what's your name? We'll add a new question here. What's your email address? And one thing you'll notice, or you may notice, is once you start typing here in a form, it will actually change this type of question. Is it a short answer? Is it a paragraph, multiple choice, whatever? So we'll ask for their name or their email address, and we'll ask for comment or question. So we'll make it very simple. You could make this as complicated as you want. A couple things to note here. One, If I was using for something like this with people that are inside the district, either students or teachers, I might come up here to the gear up in the upper right and collect email addresses. And what that would mean is that it would automatically collect your email address if you went in to fill this out. Why you'd want to do that is that way that you wouldn't have to worry about who's sending that information. It automatically collects it for them. It also means that they wouldn't have to type in their email address and maybe make a mistake and make a typo and not coming in right. The other thing too, let's unrestrict that. The other thing too is now that's not going to work for parents, obviously, because they're going to have to fill it in themselves. Like they're not going to be in rshu19.net account. So if I click in here an email address, I can go down here to these three dots in the form, and I can do response validation. What that means is that I'm going to make sure it's validated. I'm going to do text, and it is an email address. So it has to be an email address. That way they can't just type in anything they want and it'll come there. You can get even fancier if you want to. If I wanted to, limit it to just RSU19 accounts or whatever, in here under the response validation, you can really get it specific. Think of it like if you ask for a phone number, you wouldn't want them just to type anything they want in there. You'd want to say, no, 3 numbers, 3 numbers, dash, and 4 numbers, or something like that. So it's called an input mask, which means that it limits it to exactly what you're trying to receive, so it helps that data collection, because it's really easy to get garbage data, right? Somebody can type in, 6 numbers rather than 7, or by accident maybe, or whatever it is. So this will help with all that. The other thing I would do in here for each of these questions is I would require each of them. So they can't just leave this blank, just because that way if you want to be able to respond to them or have a suggestion or whatever, you really need to have all that filled in. So for example, if you want to do a mail merge where they fill something in and you automatically have a response to it that says, thank you for filling out this form or whatever it is, you'd want to make sure that they put their email address in there, and it has to be there. Otherwise it wouldn't work. You'll notice here the little red stars, little red asterisks when you make it required. All right, so there's my questionnaire. Again, very, very simple. We're not getting too fancy here. We could spend an entire session, maybe we will at some point if you want to, on forms, all the different options we have here. I'm going to click the eyeball up here to see what it looks like. Cool. Okay, so we'll do a sample one in here just so you can kind of see what it looks like for the whole process. This is the link I could send out there. I could put that link on my website, or I could email it to people, or however you want to share that to get people to come to this page here. So I'm going to say, yep, my name is Kern, and my email address is my school email address. And remember, I made it so if I don't type it in correctly, right, it says, no, it's going to be a valid email, so let's go type it in correctly. That won't stop you from, if I put, let's see, I don't know, a text Kelly, but if I make a typo, that's not going to notice that, right? That's going to, it'll still come through. So you want to make sure that we type in correctly. And then, hi there. So whatever you want for your question, comment, and so forth. So we'll use that information to fill in that spreadsheet, and then we'll build the merged mail merge from that. Click submit. Okay, there it is. And then again, somebody else can come in and keep adding to these. So that form just came back to the spreadsheet right here. Now this was the sheet 1 we saw. If I look down the lower left here, his form response is 1. Okay, so here's my information that was just filled in, and this will just keep filling in, as people entered into it. I now want to make this into a mail merge. I'm going to go up the top to add-ons. We put add-ons here. I'm going to get add-ons, and the one that you're looking for, now there are actually quite a couple different mail merges. The one that I'm going to recommend that I've used before, I really like, is called Autocrat. Autocrat, and I will put that link in the chat. And it's just, like I said, there are other ones out there. This one's been around for a long time. It's been very used a lot, very successful. You can install it. I've already got mine installed, so I'll just show you what it looks like. Once you click install, back in my spreadsheet here, if I click add-ons, it will be right here. So Autocrat, crap. And then I can launch it. All right, so we're going to make a mail merge job. Now, you can do this at any point. You can already have information in there. Let's say I've already collected a bunch of information. It's usually better to do the setup once. What I found with Autocrat is it works well, but it works best if you go from one end to the other and you do all the steps, sequentially, and you don't kind of jump around. Like you don't do step 1 and then come back on and do step 2 and back to step 1 or whatever. You don't you go in order. It just seems to work better. It seems a little bit more robust. So I'm going to set up a new job right here. New job. We'll call this mail merge example. Okay, so you're going to name your job because you have different jobs. Let's say you want to do one mail merge that, I don't know, it sends a PDF to mom and dad as an email and say, hey, don't forget about this, or whatever. There's all kinds of different things you can do with that. Click next. Okay, this is where you're going to make a template. When you do a mail merge, what you're really doing here is you're taking the data from a spreadsheet, for example, and you're imposing that onto like a Google Doc or maybe a Google Sheet or a Google Slideshow. This is very much similar to, I don't know if the high school I know has been doing this last few years. We have them at the end of the year. They do a year-end form where they fill out, and it automatically sends Melissa and Terry, the secretaries there, a PDF of that form so that they can print it out as a certificate, right, as an award. So that way they don't have to do the process of like retyping or going to find it or chasing that down. It all kind of comes to one place. So I can create a new one right here. If I want to create a new example template, and they're going to give us some examples here. Okay, I can also grab one. If I go from Drive, I can also grab one that I've created. Now, this means you need to create it ahead of time. Okay, so if you've already created it, you can just pull that in. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you what that would look like. I would just go to my Google Drive, click New. You can use any of these. I'm going to recommend a Google Slide. I'm going to show you why in a second. You could use a Google Doc if you want to, and you could add things here. But the reason why I'm going to recommend using a Google Slide is you have a little bit more flexibility with your graphics laid out with your words, your text. With Google Docs, for example, you can't lay text on top of an image. It's just not part of it. It would push it down, push it around, or whatever. In a Google Slide, you can. Now, we've talked about this before. Right now, this is formatted like a landscape, like a regular slideshow. If you needed to make it into a regular piece of paper, so I want this to print out as like a regular document, I can always go up here to File, Page Setup, change widescreen to custom, and we will do 8.5 by 11 inches. And so that will look like a regular document, and I could put things in here. In this situation, I'm actually not going to because I already have it up down here. So this is one that I just created real quickly just to show you some of the things it can do and why you might want to use a Google Slide rather than a doc. So we'll go through and how did I create this? We'll go through that process of creating this very one as a mail merge. Step number one, background. Again, this is something that is difficult to do in Google Docs, is to add a background that's consistent all the way through. You can change the color, but you can't really add an image or a gradient or that kind of stuff if you want to. So let's say I just want to make a pretty gradient in the background here. I click background, go to color. Again, I could do a solid color if I wanted to, or I could do a gradient. We're going to do red because there we go. Let's say that's a nice gradient we want for our background. And now I'm going to put some text here. Any text that I want to add, I'm going to make it white so you guys can see it. And we'll make it a lot bigger. And mail merge. And on the center of that, okay, so there's a little text header if I want that. Cool. If I want the language, if I want the words from my spreadsheet that I created, how you're going to do this is called tags. What a tag is, I can even have it look, it can look like anything I want, right? So I could have it the same thing. I'll make it a little bit smaller here. But let's say I'm going to do that name tag, meaning, so if I go back to my spreadsheet for a second, these are the things. I'm going to cancel out of these for a second. Okay. If I go back to my sheet here, this is my name. These are the titles of the categories or the question that I asked: name, email address, and comment or question. It is important that you reference those exactly. So I don't call it name here and call it first name over in my slideshow, that they match exactly. So I come back in here, I can add name. Now the only thing is to do is I'm going to add these brackets like this, open and close on both sides. That will now reference that other spreadsheet. Okay, so when I pull it up, name is going to be right there. That looks great. I'm going to add one more. So if I put down here, let's say I want comment and or question. Again, I want to make sure that those words, I'll make that a little bit tinier again because I think it's a little bit big. If I want to make sure that those match up with this spreadsheet. So comment or question is written exactly the same way. Here's a cool new, a relatively new feature that's been added this year in slides. I think it's kind of neat. If I click on the text here, you'll notice this little kind of weird icon appears down here in the lower left. If I click on that, does this auto fit in that square? So what that means is, do I shrink the text on overflow or do I resize the square itself? The benefit of that is if I click shrink the text on overflow, that means that whatever somebody types in for a question or comment, let's say it's short or let's say it's really, really, really long, it's going to adjust the font size to fill in this box. So I don't have to worry about certain things being hidden. Before that, you had to really worry about, well, could it be bigger than this? And do I have to make a smaller font or whatever? But now we don't really have to worry about that anymore. Let's add one more thing in here. I'm just going to add a graphic. So if I'm going to go to my image search right here, we'll go to Drive. I have my logos up here, so let's go grab the Warriors logo. And the benefit of this, again, is just that the reason why I bring this up with graphics is if you do want to make something like a certificate or whatever, these things can kind of layer on top of each other. So let me show you an example of this. I'll come back to my example I had earlier right here. So this graphic in the back here is its own graphic, right? Undo so you can see that. And then I have my name text box on top of that. So how you do that, if I right click on one of these, I can either bring it to the front or send it to the back. So you can order something on top of each other. So the benefit of that is something like this is I can see right now, I can see that I can put my name on top of something else behind it, like some cool image or whatever. The other thing too, as I mentioned right here, is if I click on this, I can shrink text overflow. So no matter how big the name is, it's going to adjust to fit in that box. It'll get smaller or bigger, depending on what it needs to. And again, this is just a simple one. One quick thing here, where do you find this, graphic? How do I find that kind of stuff? All I did in this case was going to Google Images. Back up to Images here. So Google Images. I just searched for a lower third. And again, you could search for anything if you want a graphic or anything, but lower thirds of those things, like you've seen these before, where if you have, watching a show or a news article, whatever, they'll have in the lower third here, they'll have like a little name here. Now, in this case, I also added under Tools, I went to Color and looked for Transparent. And what that means is, I don't remember if it's which one. Yeah, this one right here. So if I click on that, that image now will have this this checkerboard around it. And what the checkerboard does is that's a transparency, basically. That means that it won't show through here, like these edges here. So again, that's just kind of cool. If you want to. We do have our students in broadcasting actually making their own lower thirds, which is kind of cool too. So that means something. If you want one, let us know. All right. So I'm going to get rid of the sample one here. I have my template. I've got my tag right here with my brackets open and close around name. I've got comments or questions, again, with a tag. I'm not going to add email in this one. If I wanted to, I could add it just here. Make that a little bit smaller. Yep, there we go. And let's say I did email. I can't remember if I called it email address. I did. So I want to make sure it's exactly the same thing. Okay, so there's my template. I'm going to go back to my spreadsheet. I'm going to go Add-ons, Autocrat, and Launch. We're going to make a new job again. I'm going to ignore the one we just did, the demo. We'll start fresh again. All right, we're going to do a new job. This is our mail merge example. Next, we're going to grab, again, I could go from Drive. I could go find that slideshow that we just created. So I think I called it mail merge example. Yep, there it is right there, mail merge example. If it's not right there, you can just search for it right up here. Let's select it. It's going to say, you sure? Yes. This is the thing right here when it's actually going through this little, little graphic here. You do want to be patient because Autocrat, what I find works best if you're very sequential. So you let it finish whatever it's doing and not click, get too click happy. Like let it completely finish. Now we'll click next. Give it a second. Okay. So let's look at what's going on here. I can zoom in a little bit. See a little better. Okay. So the first thing is it's asking which tab it wants you to match. So the tab on your spreadsheet, unless you've changed the name of it, is Form Responses 1. That's like the default tab that comes in here. So that's probably what it is, right? The first row, if we look up here at the top, is the header row. We don't want that information. We don't want to make a PDF or a slideshow with that information. That doesn't make any sense. So we're saying, yep, the first row is the header row. We're going to start with data or questions in the second row down. Right here. Because our names all matched, name, question, comment, email address, it linked those two things together. So, oh, you have one called name with brackets around it. That links to one called name. If it didn't, you could come in here and you could say, oh, yeah, I want to, a name actually connects with someone called first name or whatever. You can map those. You can connect those. I just find it easier if you call them exactly the same thing. It makes it much less confusing. There's also other things in here. Okay, so if you notice, your standard is just going to be the text. It could be a hyperlink. So let's say you want that to come in, but you actually want it to be clickable to something. Now, again, it has to be an actual hyperlink. Or maybe it's an image or a checkbox. Again, these are options. If you wanted a picture that somebody did, you could create a PDF with that part of it. All right, that all looks good. I'm going to click next. What's the file name going to be? So it could be called, this is my mail merge example. You can call whatever that final result you wanted to do, but you don't want to name every one of those the same, right? So one cool thing you can do here, I'm just going to put spaces so it doesn't give me that red lines here. One cool thing is you can include those tags. So let's say, for example, I put the tag and I say name. So that means that it's going to have the name of the person each time right in the final creation. So that way you can just look at the file that's created, that mail merge, that PDF or document or slideshow, and say, oh, that one's for Kern, or that one's for Susie, or that one's for Bill, or whatever. What is it creating? Is it going to create a Google slide? Again, depending on what your needs are. Maybe you want to create Google Slides with information from your students and give it to them. So that's one option. Or you could create a PDF. So a PDF is probably more likely because that's something that you're just going to give out. So that's not editable. They can just read it or see it. Output as, just keep it as multiple mode, the default. There's no reason why you need to change that. Click next. Okay, where is it going to save all these? You do want to take the time to make a Google Drive folder for your output. So let's say at the beginning of the year, you're asking questions of your parents. Hey guys, could you fill this out for me? Maybe with your contact information or just things that you want to know. And they fill it out and you're just going to send a thank you note to them like, thank you, Mrs. Smith, for filling this out or whatever. You don't want all those documents to be going just in your regular My Drive. It's just going to be everywhere. You're going to find them all over the place. So my recommendation is you create a folder ahead of time in your Google Drive called, mail merge PDFs or something like that, whatever makes sense. I'm going to choose folder right here. I created one earlier called mail merge right here. One mail merge just to have as a sample. Click select. Yep. I'm going to remove, so I've got it going into mail merge. You could have it go to multiple places. I don't want it to go into My Drive, just the open My Drive. That's going to get too messy. So I'm going to get rid of that one. Yep. So all the results of this mail merge are going to go right to here. Click next. Dynamic folder reference. I'm not going to worry about this today, but you can make it so you can do things like, certain columns have to be a certain way. Let's say you want to say like, well, that column's empty. It doesn't send the mail merge or whatever. You can get really complicated with processes and workflows, like how you want it to get sent, depending on what your needs are. Again, I'm not going to worry about this today. Usually you probably won't use this feature. Also adding conditions, set up merge conditions. So if you said, look, if you send it to me and the email address was empty, it doesn't send you anything, stuff like that. Like, you can get more specific. Again, I'm not going to worry about that right now. Click next. Share the document. Am I sharing this with the person? Okay, so let's say they emailed it to me. They filled out a Google form. Am I sending this document directly to them? If no, that means that you'll have a copy of it, but that's as far as it will go. You'd have to share them individually if you want to. If I say yes, I'm going to share that document as a PDF with the reply address right here. If I scroll down, you'll notice here is like a regular email address, right? So I could I'm going to share it automatically with that email address that the person sent in. And I can put in here, type in subject, thank you. And I could say, thank you, name, for filling out my form, et cetera, right? So you can use those tags with what the questions are that they actually answered in here. So when I'm done, it'll automatically get sent as a PDF to that person with all that information you just collected. Okay, that all looks good. Here's a weird one. You want to allow them to share it, to reshare it. The reason why I say that's weird is because you can't really stop them. If they get an email, they could forward that email on. So anyway, click next. Okay, this one's important. Add or remove a job trigger. When does this run? When does this say, okay, I got a bunch of information, I got a bunch of people filled this form out. When do I send these out? You can do it on a form trigger. Okay, so I said yes, and I have to confirm that. Basically what that means is when somebody fills out the form, clicks submit, you can run it right then. And probably that's what you want to do. If you don't want to do it, if you want to wait for a certain amount of time so it doesn't go to anybody until you say, okay, tonight at midnight, every day at midnight, it runs this and does this thing, you could say, no, run on a time trigger, and you could set a certain time. Like at a certain time, Mondays at midnight, that's when it runs, or whatever. Again, probably most of the time you're going to do it on a form. That means as soon as they fill out the form, it's just going to send it out. That looks good. Let me click save. All right. Here's my mail merge. Again, this is that demo we can delete. I'll delete in a minute. But here's my mail merge. So this is the process. Again, I have it set up so that it will just run when somebody fills the form. Now, I've already put a form information there. I've already started collecting it. So how am I going to run on people who've already collected it? I can just click play right here, this little play button. And it will run this mail merge. You'll say, okay, here's the information. I'm going to send out this. I think I chose a PDF. In this case, it's only one row. So this one row will be merged. All right. I'm going to exit this out. If you notice here, back in my spreadsheet, here's the data that I collected initially, but it created these other columns for me. Okay, so this is other information. For example, here's the new Google Doc that I just created. Here's the PDF I just created. Here's this information. Here's the thing saying document created successfully. Cool. So I could click on one of these and go right to that link, right to this PDF right here. That's the one I created. Hey, Kern Kelly, there's my email address. Hi there. Also, if I go back to that folder that I created called Mail Merge, it will be right here. Here it is. Here's the one. Remember how we noticed about Mail Merge example, the name? I double click on that. There it is. All looks good. And that's your Mail Merge created. So hopefully that helps if you are interested in mail merges. The good news is we covered a lot of ground there. So this recording, obviously, like every other week, will be available. So if somebody wants to follow it later on and kind of pause it as you need to, as you're creating these things, you can do that. The bad news is we didn't get to Google Photos today like I wanted to. However, we will do this next time. I'll start with this one next time. Just the reason why you might say, Kern, why are you doing Google Photos? We talked about that before. Specifically, the reason why I wanted to bring it up, and I'll just mention this and then we'll kind of move on, is if you are interested in storing your photos in a storage place, and I don't mean necessarily your school photos per se, but like just your photos that you have, on your own phone or whatever, as of June, this coming June, it will no longer be unlimited. Right now, it's unlimited photo storage. So pretty now in June, if you want to take the time to go through and scan your photos or take pictures of them or upload them or whatever, this is the time to do it with your own personal account. After June, they're gonna charge. Now, just so you know, right now I get 100 gigs of storage in Google Photos for $1 a month. So it's not crazy expensive. But if you want to take the time right now, I actually over the last break with my own boys went through and we took old photo albums that I hadn't scanned yet or I hadn't recorded yet to upload them to Google Photos just so we have a backup of them, a digital backup. But we will talk more about that next week, or excuse me, 2 weeks from now. Next week is vacation. And so we will cover more stuff with Google Photos and more questions and so forth. And we should have some students that are going to be joining us. So I think with that, if there are no other questions, don't forget, share that paint with Mandy if you get a chance to. Make some beautiful paintings here. And with that, have a great vacation if I don't see you before a couple more weeks. Happy Wednesday, and we'll see you soon.